Chapter 73. Teamwork. Blue spends the week leading up to the match doing little but training and planning, not just with Glenn but with all 12 trainers. They often break off into groups of 4 to 6 to discuss particular things, but at least half the time all 12 trainers are in a room talking about what the gym might possibly throw at them. Sabra said we have to declare who's challenging by tomorrow, Blue notes a couple nights before the match as they finish up another meeting. Empty plates of food and half-drunk soda around them. Everyone else has gone to bed. So they can prepare the Pokemon they'll use against us. Bet you're glad I won't be going with you then, Glenn says with a smile. Otherwise, they'd bring out the really scary stuff. Blue smiles back, but he feels a pang in his chest. It's unfair that Glenn wouldn't get to be part of the world's first live scenario challenge, that he'd have to wait until next week for his own team's challenge. After all the work he put in. He plays it off, but Blue isn't sure how seriously to take it. Blue takes another swallow of his soda, then spins the can in his hands. Glenn, if you want... No. But... Blue starts again, but Glenn is already shaking his head. I'll stay with my team. It'll help, knowing what to expect, and we'll be right behind you. He holds his can up. Win it, Blue. We've been here long enough. Blue nods and drinks with his friend. Long enough to form memories that he wouldn't trade anything for, too long to stay with some. And aside from all that, he's been feeling it more and more lately. The call of the road. We'll be gone by the end of next week, Blue promises, and taps his can to his. He spends another hour in bed after, examining his roster, thinking of who to bring. If he expects all-electric Pokemon, like a normal gym battle, then a Pidgeotto or Wartortle will hold him back. But if they surprise them, mix things up in some way. He'd rather have a balanced team. Still, it feels strange to have gone through so much to capture ground Pokemon like his Dugtrio, and then not end up using them. In the end, he picks Maturin, Zephyr, Reeve, Gon, Ion, and his yet unnamed Snorlax. It's his strongest Pokemon by far, and he spent a lot of time learning how to train and take care of it from Glenn. Whatever they bring to counter it, he's confident he can use it to better effect. He sends the list to Sabra, then rolls over and tries to sleep, dreaming of victory and disaster both entwined. After some discussion, it became pretty obvious where the battle would take place. The Zapdos cannon's trajectory was nearly due south, and luckily the only buildings tall enough to be affected were in about 24 blocks along either side of the major road that the ball of plasma briefly aligned with. The majority of the destruction in the area has been cleared away, but the skyscrapers themselves are still surrounded by construction vehicles and cranes. Some are slated for demolition, others rebuilding. The city's motels, hotels, and even trainer houses are packed full of the displaced citizens who lived in them, and the city took a hard look at how much traffic it would cause to shut the streets down during repairs, rather than keeping a few lanes open, and concluded it was well worth it. Which is why when the taxis driving Blue's team turn toward the cordoned-off blocks, there isn't much surprise. The barricade gate goes up as they approach, and suddenly the streets around them are eerily empty and quiet as they drive between the burnt buildings, all the construction in the area halted. Blue wonders if everyone involved had any warning, or was just told to take an extra long lunch break. As soon as Blue and his team are dropped off, they don't wait to watch the 2 taxis drive away, instead quickly spreading out to scout the area. Testing, sound off, Blue instructs, clicking his earphone to the open channel. I hear you, Blue, Taro says, echoed by his sister a moment later. Heard Taro Chi, Lizzie says. Heard Lizzie, MG says. Heard MG, Kron finishes. Guess they're not blocking our comms. They'd better not, with an arena this big, Chi notes. East alleys are clear, by the way. Anyone see anything we're going to have to be defending? Or assaulting? Taro adds. They might throw a curveball and say we're the Wilds. Shh. Anyone else hear that? Blue almost asks Kron what he heard, then doesn't need to. There's a buzzing coming from every direction. For a split second, he thinks the match has started, that there's a horde of Beedrill coming at them. But a moment later, he recognizes the sound. Soon the drones are visible, flying in from all directions. Some stop overhead, others go farther along the block and out of sight. There are 9 civilians trapped in the zone. Surge's voice echoes out from their speakers without preamble. You have 30 minutes before the next wave hits. Priority 1 is to find the civilians and keep them safe. All trainers will receive a badge if you are successful, except for those who have lost all their Pokémon. Blue's racing thoughts hit a wall, and for a moment he stops thinking in terms of how to win the challenge and starts thinking of the implications of the new rule. All of their scenarios assumed an all-or-nothing badge win for the challenging side. That's the whole point of doing badge challenges as a team. No, there has to be some consequence to death, even if the mission succeeds. Now people will be trained to somewhat prioritize their own survival, just like in a real incident. Radio silence, so you will not receive any additional warnings. Surge is saying, as Blue forces himself to pay attention again. He quickly sets a 29-minute alarm on his watch. All rescued civilians and surviving trainers must be indoors in a secure location within the scenario bounds by the end of it. 3 teams of 2, Blue mutters. Tarochi, Kron, and MG, Lizzie with me. Any trainer leaving the marked scenario bounds will be considered to have forfeited. Any trainers who attempt to move past an enemy Pokémon without their own Pokémon around to combat it will also be considered deceased. Attempts to interfere with drone functions or observation is strictly off limits. You are to treat them as though they don't exist. Finally, as trainers would otherwise face a significant handicap in not being able to capture wild Pokémon encountered, your opponents will withdraw their Pokémon, not just when they feel their lives are in danger, but if they feel that a trainer of basic competence would be able to capture them. That is all. Good luck. Blue sees Lizzie running toward him, her phone out, and he brings out his own so he can open a map of the area. He doesn't know how big the marked-off area is along the path of destruction, but the edges are well defined at least. Taro Chi, find the nearest edge of the arena and search along it. Report back when you find another edge. Together, Taro asks. Can cover more distance apart, Chie adds. Blue hesitates, then says, Your choice, risk and reward. Kron and MG, you're on buildings. Liz and I will get streets. Let's move in the same direction and stick to one side of the street so we can loop around after without retracing our steps. We're splitting, Chie says. It may put me on the far side from all of you, but I think I'll be okay. Can we split too? MG asks. Sure, but don't go more than 1 building from each other, Blue says. Keep in mind, we don't know what the enemy's power breakdown is going to be. In a situation like this, where they can't know which of us they'll be facing, they may all be equalized, Taro says, voice hopeful. The objective itself gives us incentive not to stick together, Lizzie says as she and Blue begin searching the side streets and alleys between the buildings. But that's a potential bonus of this scenario, you know? No reason to fight unless a civilian is nearby. If Surge shows up, just run away. No reason but pride, Taro mutters. Not sure how I feel about getting my first badge without fighting a leader. I get it, Kron says. But if his loadout is to take on me or MG or Blue, he'll crush you. He'll probably be guarding a civ, MG points out, which means at least one of us will have to face him. Don't assume that, Blue warns. We also don't know if realism is what they're optimizing for. He was afraid of a situation like this, where no amount of preparation could answer basic unknowns about the rules the scenario has been built on. Move as fast as you can without tiring out. We need to learn more nearly as much as we need to start finding civs. Going to check the next street, Lizzie says as she brings her Electrike out. We can leapfrog one to the next? Sounds good. Blue summons Zephyr, and a quick blow of his flute sends the bird Pokémon up and around in scouting circles. It's not a perfect defense, considering the training is for any Pokémon that gets spotted without a nearby human, but maybe the gym has trained some Pokémon to operate at a distance from themselves. More than half of these buildings are locked tight, MG says. Should we assume they are not inhabited? Yeah, Blue says as he runs from one alley to the next, breathing in deep, steady breaths. My guess is those will be all the big ones, with the small ones left open, but check the doors on each just in case. It's another thought that sends him back into wondering about the decision-making that went into the challenge and the expectations for the challengers. They were only allowed to bring in their Pokémon and combat-relevant items, like medicine and communication devices, which greatly limits how prepared they could have been for this particular scenario. That supports the idea that realism is the main goal, but it also restricts how creative they can be within the scenario itself, which is a mark against realism. Blue can't imagine a situation where they would have to do search and rescue, but not have access to their bikes. Hazards, Kron reports, voice slightly breathless. Found an apartment building filled with galvantula web, enough to fill the lobby. Guess this supports the idea that they're only using electric types, testing to see if it's active. Blue almost warns him about how to go about testing it, then holds himself back, not wanting to undermine his friend by presuming incompetence. Besides, he has to focus even more on his surroundings now. Are those Pineco shards littering the floor? No, just a broken beer bottle. There's a loud snapping sound from his earplug. Yep, that's live, very live. Should I try to get through? Can you? With a few minutes of work, yeah. Blue hesitates as he makes his way around the base of a crane to check the thin alley between a pair of ruined buildings, then turn toward the next and enter it from the other side of where they started. Not sure. Thoughts? The channel is quiet at the moment, and Blue uses the silence to check the next alley. He sees a scrap of cloth on a wall that was caved in and wonders if it's part of the scenario. Would they deliberately seed the area with clues? He could go inside and check, but that would be deviating from his role of sticking to the outsides. After a moment, he marks the location on their shared map and moves on, trusting Kron and MG to check it out. MG is the first to speak. They made Trainer Death lose us our badge. They probably want decisions like this to be punished if wrong. Makes me think it's better to ignore. We were dropped off near it, Lizzie points out. Maybe it's meant to be an early source of information one way or another. That gives Blue pause. Would Serge want to construct the scenario like that, rather than develop it to be as realistic as possible? Blue's not yet positive that he has a good handle on Serge's personality. His virtue, as far as most people seem to believe, is teamwork or coordination or something like that, and Serge agreeing to these scenarios seems to back that up. But that doesn't really help him here, and it feels like there's a deeper answer, a more true one that fits more evidence, covers more ground. He and Glenn wrestled with this topic all week, knowing they would have to outthink the gym leader and his people. But being here, in the test itself, somehow focuses Blue's thoughts, channels them inexorably toward a conclusion, instead of just suggesting one idea after another. Each reasonable in their own way. Blue stays still and closes his eyes as he leans against a wall, catching his breath, and focusing as hard as he can on the direction his thoughts are moving. In Serge's heart of hearts, did he agree to these scenarios just to teach challengers to work together better? Maybe. But the lieutenant is different from most gym leaders. He was in the military, was in a war, and is more involved in his city than any leader in Kanto. He acts like someone not just dedicated to the role of a gym leader, focusing on their city's safety in the present and immediate future, but as someone with an eye on wider currents carrying dangers from farther in time. Paired with a burning drive to prepare for the worst, it's hard not to see these scenarios as just another part of the preparation that drives him to reshape an entire city, block by block and piece by piece, to better suit his goals. Would someone like that present a scenario where the way to win is to play it safe, or to dive for, seemingly obvious, objectives? He doesn't know. But if he has to bet, and he does, then leave it, Blue says, and starts moving again. Just mark the location. We don't know yet if the civvies will always be in danger. Better to confirm rather than risk wasting time. Do you think we should start at the opposite end in that case? Lizzie asks. Tarochi will have to tell us how far that is first, Blue says, as he looks through the window of a fully intact deli shop. Nothing out of the ordinary. As he jogs over to the next block, Blue checks the time and is relieved to find that only 3 minutes have passed so far. They've covered 2 blocks so far. There's no way the arena will cover 20 blocks. Found someone, MG says, a thread of excited tension in her voice. Ma'am, are you Okaga? What happened? Blue asks, alarm quickly replacing his excitement. Are you okay? He hears something through his earpiece that sounds like crying. Ma'am, please. MG's voice is muffled. MG, are you okay? Report. Fine. Her voice sounds muffled, and after a moment she speaks more clearly, though her tone is frazzled. The civilian is distraught. She's hugging me. What should I do? Blue's mouth opens, then closes, listening to the tinny sound of the woman's crying. This isn't something they prepared for. Of all the people for that to happen to, are all the civilians going to do this, or were they each specially instructed to? Hug her if she needs hugging, Chie says. Reassure her that she'll be okay. Sit with her until she calms down, then tell her to follow you to one of the buildings that seemed safe and securable. All right, ma'am. It'll be okay. Guys, I'll be back in a bit. Her transmission ends. Thanks, Chie. One down. Blue checks the time and sees that another 2 minutes have passed. Keep moving, everyone. They continue their sweeps, and Blue tries not to feel impatient as they continue to find nothing but empty alleys and side streets. He knows it's important, if even a single civilian isn't in one of the buildings they'd all fail without checking, but he wishes there was an easier way. If only one of them had a Pokemon they could fly on. No, then they would probably have just changed things up anyway. Search and rescue Pokemon. We all need to have at least one. That can keep up with a bike. Blue has to struggle to stay focused, and does so by imagining there's a gym member pretending to be a civilian cowering between those 2 trucks ahead. No, so there might be a wild Pokemon waiting to ambush him in that alley. Just found a barrier, Chie says. I counted 4 blocks. Took me almost exactly 6.5 minutes to reach it from our starting position. Going to keep tracing the edge till I meet Taro. I see one too, he says. 5 blocks. Looks like we were dropped off around the middle. Good job. Lizzie and I are close to yours, Taro, so we'll check the other side of the street as we double back. You and Chi keep going along the edge until you meet up with each other. You got it. As the comms go silent again, Blue is aware of the persistent buzzing that's been ongoing since the match started. He looks around until he spots one of the drones and sees another one nearby. They're following them, probably recording them. He considers flashing a victory symbol, then decides not to come off as too cocky. He wonders where the others flew off to, at the start. Would they go to the gym members? For a moment, Blue considers the possibility that another team of trainers has been secretly put in the scenario, either competing for their own badge or specifically to foil them, then dismisses it. If anyone spots one of the drones that's not following you, let us know. Maybe a clue. Would they do that? Don't know, but can't hurt to keep an eye out. He's just crossing over to another block with Lizzie when Kron's terse voice suddenly says, "Contact. I just entered a bank and hear someone shouting for help. Do you need backup?" Checking it out now, I hear a banging. It sounds like he's running as he speaks, and Blue almost tells him to go slow, be wary of traps. But no, if someone's shouting for help. Ah, shit. It's Igarim. She's using an Electabuzz to try and bash a door down. Go Gloom. Stun Spore. Blue checks his map for the others' locations and see that Chie is closest. Chie, go. No, I got this. Gloom, absorb. Keep searching. Blue bites his lip but decides not to undermine his teammate. All right, but call out if you need help. Dodge. Okay, switching off. His transmission cuts off, and Blue starts moving again, wanting to hurry up and reach the end of the street so they can start heading back toward the middle, where they can reach any of the others more easily. As he exits an alley, he sees Lizzie crossing the street, the barricade marking the edge of the scenario up ahead, and quickly finishes his own sweep before joining her on the other side, once again taking the side streets she skipped. Hey guys, MG says. I've calmed her down and, she seems ready to travel. Where should I take her? Kron is trying to save someone at the bank, Chie quickly says. It would probably be a safe place once cleared? Agreed, Blue says, picking up on what she's getting at. Make sure your civilian is a safe distance away when you get there, then help Kron out, and we'll start bringing anyone else we find there. Right. We're on our way to him. Blue hears her start coaxing the woman before shutting off her mic again and heads to the next street. He sees Lizzie beside it, however, and her expression stops him. What's wrong? She's frowning hard at her map and adjusts her glasses before turning to him. We're about to hit the 10-minute mark. A third of our time is gone, and we've only found 2. We won't make it at this rate, especially with one trainer down to guard them. Blue wants to refute the necessity of the last part, but it's the safest play. And more importantly, their time feels like it's ticking by faster than before. Any ideas? Let's treat this a little more like a real scenario. Call out to anyone that needs help. They were probably told to react realistically. It might draw in enemies too, but at least we're spending our time on them, rather than walking around. Blue thinks about it, viscerally aware of the passing time, a clock that ticks with each beat of his heart. It's a good idea. If they decide to punish it, though. He thinks of Surge again, tries to model the leader's philosophy and perspective. And he might. It would be dangerous to do in reality. It would take up a lot of our time. We'd probably get overwhelmed if it's just the two of us. Let's hold on to that idea until we're near the end, in case we get desperate. She nods, and they start searching again. Waiting until we can gather at the bank might be best anyway, you know. We'll have a fortified place to defend, though I'm unsure what they would do if time runs out while we're under siege there. Blue can't guess that either. Count it as a loss because the next wave would hit meanwhile. Let's not assume that's a victory condition then. Blue, here. He dashes over to Lizzie and finds her kneeling beside a young man sitting against a dumpster, face pale and eyes closed. Blue recognizes him as one of the gym members he fought during his challenge matches, though he can't remember his name. He has what looks like an actual wound on his arm, blood soaked through his shirt. Blue skids to a stop and reaches for a potion, but Lizzie already has one out and is spraying the wound. Blue stares at the shredded arm and sleeve, not breathing as he waits for it to start closing. But nothing happens. Are they too late? Don't be stupid. That would mean he's actually dead. Blue lets his breath out, grounding himself. He got a bit too caught up in the scenario there. It looks realistic, but obviously the wound must be fake. Still, if the rules state that enough time passed without help would count the civilian as dead. A moment later he stirs and opens his eyes, arm still looking like a side of raw beef, then lets out a sigh of relief. Oh, thank Arceus. I thought I was a goner. Are you here to rescue me? Even after hearing about what MG went through, it feels weird to play along with something like this. But breaking the illusion also feels unsporting. Yes, Blue says as he quickly thinks of how he would act in a real situation. Are you? Do you feel okay? Can you stand? Lizzie frowns at the man's arm, then pokes at it and brings her finger to her nose, sniffing the blood. The trainer smiles at her, then quickly puts on a scared face again as he turns back to Blue. I don't know. I feel a little weak. Could you help me up? Blue holds an arm out for the man to take, then pulls. He almost immediately staggers, then leans onto Blue's shoulder. Sorry, just a little dizzy. Uh-huh, Blue says, and internally sighs. Of course this wouldn't be easy. Now their search party would be halved. Lizzie, keep looking for others. I'll get him to the bank. No. Blue and the trainer blink at her as she leaves the alley and observes the street around them. Why not? It would take too much time. Leave him here. We know where he is. If we find another civilian, we can come back for him and escort both together. Now the civilian seems just as surprised, and Blue grins. Genius. Wait, you can't... He trails off, looking back and forth between them, then seems to remember his role and staggers harder against Blue. I'm hurt. You're just going to leave me here where I could be attacked by another Pokemon? Clearly there wasn't too much time spent coaching the actors beyond their basic roles. Hey, you'll be all right, Blue says with a grin, as he ducks under the older boy's arm and sets him back down against the wall. Just sit quietly like you were before, and call out for help if you see any wild Pokemon. We'll be back before you can say, Blue, I've reached the bank and helped Kron defeat the, wild Pokemon here. Blue grins and straightens. That's great. He ignores the fake civilian and continues on to the next alley, signaling Lizzie to do the same. No matter how realistic Surge might make the scenario, he's not going to put two civilians in the same alley. Probably not even those beside each other. Or is that what he wants Blue to think? What did Igarim do after? Just left. Didn't say anything. Kron says, voice dull. It's not all good news, Blue. We lost 6 Pokemon between us. You guys need to be careful. Blue stops in his tracks, mouth agape. He barely manages to keep from repeating the number, knowing his incredulous tone would come off as criticizing. Still, it's difficult to swallow his frustration. What happened? Nothing, it was just strong. I lost 3 before MG showed up, then 1 more, and she lost 2. I don't know if we weren't meant to take it on with just 2 trainers, but... No, Blue says, feeling a pit in his stomach. It's fine. This must be how they're balancing against our belt numbers. Hopefully that's all it is. There was a civilian there though, right? Oh yeah, so that's 2 we've got now, right? Blue feels a thread of worry for his teammate as he peers into a dumpster. Kron sounds so despondent. Not that Blue blames him, being down to 2 Pokemon. 3 actually, sort of, long story. Sort of. Well, that's great, Kron says, clearly trying to put on a cheerful tone. We'll find somewhere safe to put them, then head back out to... You can't. We need you to guard them. I can still fight, Blue. Don't bench me yet. Blue bites back his first response, which would have been to remind Kron that if he loses his last Pokemon, he'd lose his badge. He knows that, and it would just make him feel more like he's being sidelined for his own good. Did you consider that maybe she heard your voice in her head, telling her that she had to go in there? Blue shuts his eyes and shakes his head, taking a calming breath against the spike of anger. He wishes his battle calm applied to situations like this whole scenario. It would be so much easier to think quickly and clearly. This is for the mission, Kron. I wouldn't put it past Surge to attack them at some point after we've gathered them, and I'm guessing you kept your tanks for last. Yeah. Then you're the best person for the job. If the place is attacked, hold them off as long as you can, while we come running. Right. You got it. Sorry, Blue, It's fine, really. Blue meets Lizzie at the end of another block, and they both turn into their next ones. MG, keep searching buildings until you... Whoa! Big! 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 Taro suddenly yells, and Blue freezes as he hears a roar echo through his earpiece in the city. Guys, there's a freaking Blastoise. Back out, Blue says and checks his map. Where was it? Between the pizza place and the aw shit, it's chasing me. What? Who's the trainer? It's Otto, he's making it chase me. So much for avoiding unnecessary battles. Get it into the main street, Lizzie and I will come and... No, keep looking, I got this. Chi cuts in, voice strained. Don't be an idiot, Taro, you've got nothing that can take it. Don't plan to, Taro says between breaths as he runs. Just gonna keep moving. Blue blinks, then grins. Genius. Let us know if he breaks off. Will do. Blue, trust your brother Chie and go meet up with MG. There's a pause, then a conflicted, all right, you'd better not get cornered, Taro. You bet. Which way are you headed? Blue asks, looking around, then spots the distant figure as it runs from the truck-sized turtle. The Blastoise is down on all fours as it gives chase, with its trainer at its side. Up Main Street, back toward where we started. Hey, Kron says, you also found the answer to our typing question, so thanks for that. You're welcome. Blue turns to Lizzie. Otto might have been guarding a sieve. Can you go? On it. She jogs off, and Blue keeps moving as he checks the time. They've almost finished with this side, and they have only 18 minutes left. Lizzie's idea is becoming both more attractive and less, but the sieve they found was unconscious, so it wouldn't work for him, even if he was instructed to go to someone calling out for him. And the gym members representing wild Pokemon would almost certainly attack if they start yelling for survivors to come out into the streets. The buzz of the drone is a little louder. Did it get closer? He tries glancing around without shifting his head, but it's floating somewhere above and behind him. He's about to dismiss it when Zephyr suddenly screeches out a warning, flying a quick circle between 2 buildings on the next block, then rapidly flies back to Blue, landing on his shoulder. You're getting way too big for this, Blue mutters as he quickly feeds his Pokemon a berry so that he'll fly away, then quickly returns him to his ball. There's something reassuring about knowing that he's about to be attacked. The battle calm is already spreading through him as he moves to an open area and summons Ion. The Luxio is over twice as tall as he was when Blue got him from Leaf as a Shinx, and comes up to his trainer's waist. He sniffs the air as he gets his bearings, then widens his stance and growls, facing the direction that Zephyr marked. Knowing that the gym members will use non-electric Pokemon makes Blue extra glad he brought Ion. "Charge," he says, and slips his protective mask on as the yellow bands around his Pokemon's legs and the star at the end of its tail begin to glow. Electricity scintillates over its blue and black fur until it's standing on end, and sparks arc between its grit teeth. A heartbeat passes, then another, and then an expanding cone of ice swirls out of the alley and envelops the whole street. Blue feels like he's been dunked in a pool of ice water, immediately starting to shiver as the freezing wind cuts at his clothes and hair and seeps into his bones. He's glad his eyes are protected by his face mask, but its surface quickly fogs from his breaths. Downside to not just having goggles, he thinks as he rips it off, wincing as his eyes and nose begin to sting from the cold. He sticks his fingers into his armpits to keep them warm as he yells, "Seriously?" There's no response. Not that he particularly expected one, but still, that was overkill. The cone of frost is evident along the ground and streetlights and trash bins, the center of it slightly off from Blue and his Pokemon. If they were any closer, or hadn't caught the diffuse end of the attack, I should run. Blue doesn't even know if there's a civilian in danger. A distant part of him itches to take on whatever challenge this is, but his calm is still with him, and he knows how underprepared he is to face an ice Pokemon, let alone one strong enough to use Blizzard. His only Pokemon not weak to it would be Snorlax and Wartortle, neither of which would have an offensive advantage. That distinction goes to Rhyhorn, who Blue doubts would be able to take a single Blizzard without needing to be withdrawn. Ion's charge is helping protect him from the cold, steam rising off his body as small sparks connect between his fur and the remaining flakes of ice. "Follow!" Blue yells as he turns and starts to run, and he's just keyed his microphone to tell the others what he found when he hears a scream. It comes from the direction of the blizzard. "Fuck!" Blue whispers as he slows to a stop, and Ion does the same, fur still sparkling. "What is it, Blue? You okay?" "What's wrong?" "Whoops. I found another civilian, being guarded by something that just hit me with a blizzard." He turns back the way he came in time to see a refrigerator floating toward him. Blue blinks, then rubs his eyes and blinks again, and it's his Pokemon's growl that makes understanding click into place. It's a strange sensation, having knowledge blocked somewhere in his own head, like something having something on the tip of his tongue, but somehow 10 times worse. "Ion Bach!" His Pokemon opens his mouth and lets out a bolt of energy, which appears to splash harmlessly against the fridge. Thanks to the Charge Beam TM Blue bot, the longer Ion stays in battle, charging and discharging electricity, the stronger he will become. But he wouldn't last long without something to tank those blizzards. The Rotom opens its door to reveal an otherworldly purple glow, and Blue yells, "Charge!" again before covering his face with both arms. The blast of cold is sharper this time, and his whole body convulses with shivers. "What is it, Blue?" "Rotu-tu-tom," he says, teeth chattering as he drops a hand to his belt and bends fingers stiff from the cold around his heavy ball. "Ice 2-type may be trouble. Ion be Bach." "I'm on my way," Chie says. "Don't come to me," Blue says, and throws. "Go, Snorlax!" The gray ball disgorges its massive contents, and Blue barely manages to catch it as it flies back at him, arms still shaking from the cold. "Check the boo block. I'm facing for the sieve." "Right, on it." "Ion, charge, Snorlax, protect." The attack comes a moment later, but instead of a blast of freezing air, Blue just feels a cool breeze. He lets out a breath of relief and quickly rearranges his healing gear so that he's ready to treat not just electric burns but frostbite. Snorlax's thick fat will protect them from the worst of the cold, but not forever. Snorlax pivot Ion Bach. The large Pokemon lifts one foot and swings its body to the side, and the light that bursts from Ion is twice as bright as the first was. The refrigerator jolts and vibrates as it's hit, but its counterattack is swift, a burst of returning electricity that hits Snorlax and causes him to grunt in pain. "Charge!" Blue tells Ion again, then tells Snorlax to protect them from the next attack. He hopes it will be the blizzard again and wonders who the Rotom's trainer is. He didn't see anyone, but they must be nearby to give it commands. Is it possible that it's an actual wild Rotom that was never found within the scenario grounds? No. The drone came a little closer just before Zephyr noticed it. In fact, it's strange that Zephyr noticed it at all, considering it doesn't look like a Pokemon, but a regular floating fridge. He'll have to look into that later. As another blast of electricity hits Blue's Snorlax, Taro's voice comes back, sounding utterly winded. Okay. I lost it. Goddamn fast for a giant turtle. You lost it? Chi asks, sounding alarmed. Where? It was definitely still chasing me when I ran around the demolished skyscraper. But after that. So there's a Blastoise just wandering around the scenario now. Awesome. I'm sorry, weren't you the one who told me not to get cornered? It could be back on its way to you, Lizzie. Kron cuts in. Be careful. I believe I've searched the area where Taro encountered the Blastoise, but have found no civilians. It's possible it was just roaming free, you know. But I'll watch out for it, maybe follow it. It could lead me to one. You be careful too, Blue. It might be on its way to help out the Rotom. Got it, Blue says. Should he try to finish the battle sooner? No, beating it sooner probably won't help get the civilian to safety much faster. He has to treat his Pokemon as the main resource being expended until the civilian is safe. Snorlax, Pivot, Ion, Bach. The Rotom takes the electric attack and returns with another of its own, though to Blue's relief, its next attack is a blizzard. The overwhelming strength of his opponent is balanced a little by it not using only its most optimal attacks, though even that wouldn't save Blue if he didn't have his Snorlax. Was he meant to be facing this foe? None of the others have Pokemon that would fare better. Is that why it only attacked once Lizzie left? Blue, I'm here, Chie says, looking for the civilian now. Got it. Blue keeps rubbing some of the earlier chill from his fingers as Ion continues building up his power, whole body glowing as the Luxio's breaths come harder and faster. You're doing great, Ion, Blue says. You too, Snorlax, just a little longer. His Snorlax's movements are noticeably slowing, and Blue can't reach most of its wounds with his potions, especially not while it's still blocking attacks from reaching them. Luckily, Snorlax aren't just sought out for their bulk. Their strength is as terrifying as their size implies, and while you can't punch a Rotom, if he gets close enough to the fridge he could probably smash it to pieces. Snorlax are slow enough that Blue doesn't want to risk sending it after something that can evade so easily. He'd rather keep using it as a tank for now. And they have yet another invaluable attribute for just such an occasion. Snorlax, rest. His Pokemon lets itself fall back into a sitting position, then slumps forward with a sigh, tension releasing from its body as it begins to heal. Most Pokemon aren't particularly expensive to own. Their Pokeballs help reduce their maintenance and upkeep by a lot, so that even if a Pokemon would normally need to eat a few times a day, their relative day may stretch out over a week by their trainer's standards. Other than the minor energy costs for storage, all Pokemon are essentially free if you don't use them, but even a Pidgey kept out of their ball all day. Every day won't cost more than a few $100s a year, whereas a Gyarados could easily cost thousands if the trainer is investing heavily in their training or growth. Snorlax are on the far end of the scale, their bodies requiring massive amounts of calories and long periods of sleep to maintain healthy levels of both muscle and fat, which they quickly burn through in combat to move quicker than they normally do, and regenerate damage they take through short, self-induced comas. Even sitting, the hulking figure of Blue's Pokemon fully covers his, but he still crouches slightly as he braces for the next attack. Ion, charge. He waits for the next electric or ice attack, preparing to run out of cover with his Pokemon, order the attack, then run back. But no attack comes. Instead, Blue's Snorlax begins to twitch in his sleep and grumble. They taught it Dream Eater. Blue quickly snaps his arm up, feeling a rush of anger and apprehension even through the analytical thoughts considering his next move. Dream Eater isn't an attack a wild Rotom would know, but it's the perfect counter to a Snorlax, and he has nothing else that can take a Frost Rotom on. If it doesn't go down in a couple hits. Snorlax, return! Blue quickly backs up to open the distance between himself and his Luxio, now that he'll be the main target. Ion! Bach! The light bursts forth with an audible hum, and the fridge jerks and spins in midair as its door opens again. The howling blizzard sweeps almost a full 360 degrees, covering most of the block in a thin layer of frost. To Blue, it's like his whole body gets slapped by a giant freezing hand. But a few blinks clear the tears from his eyes, and Ion seems unfazed. From the attack, at least. Blue can tell his Pokémon is getting tired, and unclips its ball as he reclips Snorlax. Ion, charge! Blue yells. The Rotom sends out an electric bolt this time, but Ion barely flinches, his own energy field seeming to divert it into the ground around him. He knows better than to hope the next attack isn't another blizzard. The Rotom is staying far enough that Blue doesn't think a direct hit would seriously hurt him, but it might render him incapable of battling for a while. What if I am? The rules said if I run out of Pokémon, not if I need a breather. Not that he'd take one. Wasting time could cost everyone their badge, but it's not going to attack me without a Pokémon around. Rotom are just a little faster than Blastoise. I can outrun it, and if it turns back toward Chie, re-engage it. It's a good plan. But it would rob Ion of the power he's accumulated so far. A lot of things carry through Pokémon swaps, but the energy his Luxio is generating isn't one of them. He would lose his chance to take the Rotom down, and Ion would go down from another attack. Bach! Another bloom of light, and as it hits, Blue can almost make out the purple aura around the fridge. A pair of flat, alien eyes plastered over its front as the fridge falls out of the air with a crash. Then lifts back up, steaming and swaying as electricity arcs from Ion to the ground around him, the loud snaps and crackles almost masking the sounds of Ion's harsh breathing. Just a little more. What comes out next isn't a blast of ice or lightning. Instead, the purple glow around the fridge is more evident, coalescing on the side-facing Luxio, which doesn't change even as it keeps rotating, a growing sphere of Blue. I found the civilian, moving with him now. Blue barely hears her as he unclips and throws his Rhyhorn's ball as far as he can toward the side of the fridge, waiting until it's nearly reached it before yelling, Go, Rive! The ball releases his Pokémon and rockets back just as the purple sphere detaches and jets toward Ion. Ion, return! Rive, Thar! Ion disappears in a flash of light just as the purple sphere passes through the space where he was, and Rive digs into the ground and tears out a chunk of asphalt, then launches it at the fridge. It hits with a thud that seems to echo around the block, and sparks fly out the back of the fridge as its frame bends, popping the door open and leaving it unable to shut. The fridge suddenly drops out of the air, and a glowing spot of orange and blue plasma zips away from it, back down the alley from which it came. Blue stares, breathing hard as he waits to make sure it's really over. Then he summons Ion back out. His Pokémon appears, then abruptly collapses, breaths coming fast and hard. Blue rushes over and sprays potion over it, the mist hissing as it touches his Pokémon's hot fur. Shit, I'm sorry, Ion. You did great, he murmurs, and withdraws his Pokémon. You too, Reeve, return. Blue, are you okay? He opens his mic. Sorry, yeah, I'm fine, he says as he wipes sweat from his face. What happened? He glances at his former opponent. I beat a fridge. We're all very proud of you, MG says, sounding entirely serious. He can't always get a read on her. Also, I found another civilian, but the Blastoise is patrolling nearby. I think we may need to defeat it. Or we can get it to chase one of us again while the other rescues him. I'm coming, Lizzie says. Be extra careful. This Rotom seemed particularly prepared to fight my team, and showed up once I was alone, Blue says as he starts jogging toward the next block. Assume that you're facing Pokémon that will counter what you have, even if it would be rare or unusual. Right. Got it. It feels strange going from a battle that intense back to checking empty alleys and streets, but he has to be thorough. He checks the time and sees the battle only took about 3 minutes, which means they have just over 15 left. You've been quiet, Taro. How are you doing? Full of Glenn's go-go juice and ready to go-go. Where do you need me? Chie sighs. How do you keep coming up with worse names? MG is at half strength and I'm down too, Blue interrupts. Snorlax would need to finish his rest to heal up, which wouldn't take too long, but the mental attack is more concerning. He'll bring Snorlax out if he needs to, but should refrain until he can run him through drills to ensure nothing critical was eaten. Chie, your Pokemon are still fresh. Meet up with me and I'll escort the civilians while you finish searching this side. She finds him a couple streets later, and he leads her civilian to the alley where he and Lizzie left the first one. It's a mild relief to see the trainer is still there. As you can see, he's injured, Blue says to the newcomer. Could you help him walk while I defend us from any wild Pokemon? The two look at each other. Then the new civilian nods and goes to help the injured one up. Soon Blue is leading both toward the bank, struggling against his impatience with the pace they're setting as he summons Zephyr to scout around him again and keeps an eye out for any more attacks. Okay, MG, ready when you are. Ready. Count of 3, 2, 1. Go. Then there's distant running, and a roar, and a yelp, and silence. MG, Lizzie. Blue looks down the street in their direction and sees a rush of water spreading out from an alley and running down the sidewalk. He almost tells the civilians to wait here, or go the rest of the way alone. But after a moment he grits his teeth and keeps walking as his heart pounds. He wishes, not for the first time today, that his battle calm extended beyond just when he is in literal combat. Whew. You okay, MG? My hat. I see it. One sec. Is he looking away? Wait, now yes. Got it. Thank you. Okay, seriously guys, what's going on? Chie asks. It didn't try chasing me. It just used its cannons to blast water at us when we left cover. Made us jump back into hiding, and now it's patrolling again. So we do need to take it down. Maybe, Taro says. Or maybe you just have to avoid getting seen. Stealth tactics, you know? Try blinding it too, Blue adds. Smoke screen, flash, whatever. I believe I have a better idea, MG says. We will poison it. Eventually Otto will have to withdraw it before it succumbs. Taro sighs. Shit, I should have done that. It would have already worn itself out chasing me. It's fine, we've got it, Lizzie adds. Switching off for a bit will let you know if we need backup. Blue is approaching the bank and resists the urge to look up at the drone following him. If an attack will come, it would be now. But despite his tension, he leads the two civilians into the bank without incident. Kron is waiting and guides them back to the room with the others as Blue stares at the pile of furniture stacked on either side of the door into the inner rooms until Kron comes back. Is this a barricade or a trap? Both? I asked them to help, figured I could easily collapse them if needed, turn it into a big heavy mess for any attacking Pokemon to dig through. Blue grins. I like it. How are the civilians doing? Oh, one pulled a pack of cards out and asked if I wanted to play. Not sure if they know there's no reason to keep the act up now, or if they're trying to get me to lower my guard. Blue nods, wondering if there's a way to get information out of them. Your drone is still outside, so they're keeping an eye on the place. I wouldn't be surprised if the area is hit the moment you try to leave. Hell, after the Rotom, I wouldn't be surprised if the delay is them picking a Pokemon that would be just the right challenge for what you've got left. Kron nods, face serious. I'll be ready. Now get back out there and do your part. Blue nods and tips a salute before jogging back into the sunlight. That's 4 safely in shelter, with 12 minutes left. He feels his stomach drop. They have roughly half the area left to search. It's tempting to send Kron out after all, maybe to slowly, safely work his way through the webs in that building. We need to think of something better, something that will help us with the search. Blue closes his eyes and tries to think through the sense of dwindling time. Resources, knowledge, skills. What am I not fully utilizing? All of his trainers are being used. None have Pokemon that would help find people or move faster. None of them have special knowledge of this area. Do they have knowledge of the gym members? Experience hiding strategies in urban environments? All done with this area, Blue. On my way back to start the other half. All right, I'll come join you. Blue trails off, still feeling like he should be able to think of something clever, something out of the box that will help them. What would Red do? He forces himself not to shy away from that thought. Red would use his psychic abilities, but that's not helpful to Blue. He might use some knowledge of Pokemon, something not related to battling. Blue has some of that, but he can't think of anything that would help. What would Leaf do? She told him about what happened during the storm, what she and Red went through. Blue wanted to know, but he couldn't tell how much of what she said was just trying to talk Red up, make Blue accept that he did a lot to save people. As if that was the point. Focus. What would Leaf do? Leaf's strengths as a trainer don't go toward battling. She would probably have trained her own Pokemon to be able to do something more helpful in a situation like this, like finding injured people. Her other skills are more centered around people. Like Blue, she's good at getting them to do things, like she did with the people in the apartment building that later caught fire. Blue's eyes widen, and he looks back toward the door. Kron and the others piled furniture beside before quickly running through, back toward where the civilians are sitting and playing a card game. "Everyone, please listen to me," he yells, and they all jump. "There are other people out there that need help, and we're not sure we can find them in time. I know it's dangerous, but I'd like to ask you, no, beg you, to help us find them before the next wave hits." One of them chuckles, quickly covering their smile, while the rest look sheepish or confused. "I don't think we—" Another starts, but Blue cuts him off. "I know you're injured," he says to the one whose arm still looks like it's covered in blood. "You should stay here. But the rest of you, I can assure you that one of us will always be nearby to keep you safe, and will make it back before the wave hits. So please." He claps his hands together and bows as low as he can. "Help us save the others that are still out there." There's an awkward silence, and Blue doesn't dare look up or move. 30 seconds. I'll give it 30 seconds, then laugh it off and say it was worth a try and we'll just have to run everywhere and try the Galvantula web. 6, 7, 8. He gets to 14 before one of the civilians clears their throat and shifts, and when Blue looks up, he sees the woman getting to her feet. "I'll help." Another hesitates a moment longer, then stands too. Same. The one who smiled earlier is frowning at them, and after seeing Blue's gaze on him, shakes his head. Dunno what Surge would expect. "It's all right," Blue says, and straightens with a smile, relief making him feel giddy as his heart pounds. It's got to be realistic, right? Not everyone would come. Kron is staring with a mix of awe and incredulity. "You don't think they're going to try to punish this with more attacks or something?" "They might," Blue admits. "But I'd rather lose from battling than not try my best to save everyone. Hopefully we'll be back soon." He turns to the others. "Thank you. Now come on, there's no time to lose." Blue leads them outside, and Zephyr takes off from a nearby building to fly overhead again. "Stay in sight of my Pidgeotto. It'll let us know if any Pokemon are nearby. We're going to go block by block checking the alleys, all right? If you so much as get a paranoid feeling that there's a Pokemon nearby, just run to me or one of the others." "You got it, Oak," one of them says. "You guys have fake names, or should I call you by your real ones?" He doesn't remember their real ones, but it would be a good time to learn them either way. "I'm supposed to be Nellie. Got a backstory and everything. Cruise ship chef." She grins. "I think Nellie's always wanted to do something meaningful, help people, you know." "I'm Alex, here on vacation." The trainer shrugs. "Just figured it would be more interesting than sitting there and waiting." "Good enough for me." Blue toggles his mic. "How are the buildings looking, Tarochi?" "Done a block already, but we haven't found anyone yet." "More hazards, though. Bunch of Voltorb rolling around in one of the buildings. I marked it for if we get desperate." "All right, I'm coming to sweep the alleys with help from a couple of the civvies. Protecting them is priority too, got it?" Taro laughs, while Chi just says, "Got it." They make their way through the streets at a jog, and now each block takes just a couple minutes to clear. Blue worries briefly that one or both might not actually tell him if they find a civilian. But by the second block, Alex calls out, and Blue runs over. This civilian is pretending to be unconscious. Blue moves carefully toward her, and when the pile of rubble beside her shifts and an Alolan golem uncurls from inside it, Blue feels a spike of fear before the battle calm takes over. "Go gone," he yells, and his Breloom appears just as the golem bellows and starts generating electricity between its prongs. "Contact! Gone! Pam!" The Breloom's legs coil, then he leaps forward in a green and tan blur to punch the golem just before its electricity arcs out into the street, hitting streetlights. Gon leaps back in front of Blue and begins bouncing from foot to foot, tail held high as he prepares for another attack. What is it, Blue? Need help? No. I have double advantage. Keep searching. One of you come get the trainers. Gon evolved a couple weeks ago, going from a squat, slow mushroom that was valuable for its status effects to one of Blue's heaviest hitters. As long as it's faster than its opponent, and against a golem it certainly is, Blue is confident it can win most fights it has advantage on, let alone one as stacked in its favor as this. So much for facing Pokemon that are designed against him, though to be fair, this does seem like a mostly random encounter. There's a clicking sound from somewhere above, and Blue looks up to see Sabra standing on the roof. She waves at him, and Blue quickly looks back down to see the golem charge its body with electricity. Blue quickly orders another Mach Punch, then follows up with a Leech Seed. No matter how hard Gon hits, Golem's hides are tough, and he doesn't know how strong this one is. Better to play it safe, wear it down and keep his distance while darting in for attacks. No, he doesn't have that luxury. The sooner he takes it down, the better. After the golem charges at Gon and punches him with an electrically charged fist, Blue yells, "Counter!" and watches as the two begin slugging it out at close range. It may be tough, but its electricity will barely phase Gon, while his attacks are each striking at weak points, resonating deep through its rocky hide. And then there's another series of clicks, and Blue yells "Dodge!" on sheer instinct as the golem's electricity seems to loop back on himself, and his whole body starts to glow with heat. But as soon as Gon leaps away, electricity arcs through it, and Blue's gaze snaps to the source of it, a Stunfisk lying flat against the ground that had been hiding under another pile of rocks. Blue quickly summons Maturin as he tries to withdraw Gon too, but the golem is lumbering forward, and one red-hot fist knocks the paralyzed Breloom into a spinning fall. "Gon, return. Maturin, Bob." And then he reclips Gon's ball and whistles on his flute while pointing at the Stunfisk. Blue can only follow what happens next because he initiated half of it. As Gon disappears in a flash of red energy, Maturin spits a bubble beam at the golem, knocking it into the nearby wall, then the ground, its hide turning white wherever the water splashes. Just a blink later, an arc of electricity hits Maturin, and hasn't even ended when Zephyr dive-bombs the Stunfisk and begins tearing at it with beak and talons. A heavy ball is thrown from above and withdraws the golem. Blue quickly orders another bubble beam against the Stunfisk, hoping to knock it out before it retaliates against Zephyr. But instead, the flat fish electrocutes Maturin again, and Zephyr takes some of the shock just from proximity or from his continued attacks. Blue quickly withdraws both his Wartortle and Pidgeotto as he realizes this isn't a fight he needs to win. "Forfeiting, Oak?" Sabra calls from above. "Hardly," he calls back up, reclipping his Pokemon to his belt and checking the time. 9 minutes left. "I could keep fighting with both, and maybe you'd take one or the other down before it died. But if this were a real battle, you'd withdraw it by then. And if it were a real wild battle, I'd capture it. Stunfisk can barely move outside of water or mud. So you're going to just walk by it?" "Nope," Blue says, and runs around the block to approach from the opposite side of the street. Like he said, Stunfisk can barely move on dry land. Blue quickly reaches the downed civilian and takes a variety of medication out, spraying her with potions and paralyzed heals onto her shirt, then sticks an awakening nozzle into her nose. He doesn't pull the trigger, but she gets the cue and wakes up on her own. "Hi," he says with a grin and grips her arm to pull her up. "We might want to run. I don't know what else she has. I mean, might be lurking around here." She smiles and follows him at a jog, and once they're a distance away, Blue summons Zephyr again and heals him. "So, quick proposition. Help me find other survivors, or I can take you to a safe location." "The Blastoise is down," Lizzie says, sounding giddy. "Took it long enough. We've extracted the civilian and are heading back to the bank." "No time," Blue interrupts. "I mean, good work, but also just keep them with you." "Wait, are they hurt?" "No, they're walking on their own." "Good, because we're running short on time and need to make a decision between searching the rest of the buildings we haven't yet, or go back to the Galvantula Web or Voltorbs. No need to defeat them all, just make your way through it and see if anyone's alive in either." "I was thinking about that, Blue," Lizzie says. Galvantula don't spin webs like that unless they know their area is secure. It's not likely anyone would be alive in one's nest. Shit. But not impossible? No, not impossible, if they're hiding in a closet or something. Well, our other alternative is the Voltorb building, and frankly that just seems suicidal, Kron says. I vote we try the Galvantula webs. He sighs, and by we I mean you all, of course. Taro and Chie agree, and the others stay outside to protect the civilians helping them and keep searching themselves. Blue is approaching the next block when he hears a crackle and Zephyr screeches in pain. Blue's head snaps up to see his Pokemon falling out of the sky, and leaps forward to return it before it hits the ground, then leaps back with a yell as another bolt of electricity suddenly hits the ground nearby. He follows the path of its afterimage, blinking rapidly, and sees Surge standing on the roof of a nearby building, a Raichu beside him. Blue gapes up at him for a moment, a mix of excitement and worry being mostly suppressed by confusion. With Surge's Pokemon so far away, how is Blue supposed to battle him? I'm not. This isn't a challenge to battle. Surge has removed himself as an opponent, maybe predicting the earlier sentiment that Kron shared. It's a hazard, something he's supposed to figure out, not bash his way through. Which means, Blue opens his map and pings his location. Lizzie, I need you. Then he looks around before first dragging over a metal garbage bin, then a wide plastic tarp from the back of a truck, then a broad stack of PVC pipe. By the time Lizzie arrives, he's staring at the truck itself again. What's going on? Oh shit, it's Surge. Lizzie gasps, hand darting to her Pokeball as she stares up at the gym leader. Blue, it's Surge. What's he doing up there? Guarding something, I'm pretty sure, Blue says. Do you think we could hotwire this truck? Lizzie blinks, then looks at him. That's what you need my help with? Well, I don't know how much you know about cars, so maybe not. I was just thinking out loud, like, do you think it would be against the rules? I guess I can ask. Blue looks up at the gym leader and cups his hands around his mouth. Hey, leader, is it okay if I borrow this truck? Surge shakes his head, but Blue can't make out his expression. Is he saying no to the question or refusing to answer? Maybe it's exasperated acceptance. No. Better play it safe. Sorry, the actual thing I asked you to help with is getting past him. I think this is a challenge to see how well we paid attention during our classes, Lizzie says with a nod. And Blue blinks. He was going to say how resourceful we are, but Lizzie immediately begins examining the things he gathered, then looks around them. There's a safe path, I think, the start of one. She traces something that looks like an inwardly turning maze, but Blue can't make it out. I could guide you, but I suspect you would rather cheat. Blue grins. You got me. She smiles. We'll need more metal. What's the plastic tubes and tarp for? I figured something non-conductive could be held up for cover. Lizzie shakes her head. Tallest thing is generally going to be struck in a natural environment, no matter what it's made of. With Pokemon to guide things, it's a bit different, but there's a rule where you can't repel electricity from something, just conduct it. The reason lightning rods are metal is to avoid too much resistance that would lead to, well, she points to one of the nearby burned buildings. That tarp could be used to step on, though, to avoid shocks from below, but our feet are already pretty protected by our rubber soles. Maybe bring it for a civilian. Right. I'll go get more trash bins then, Blue says, having resisted the urge to tell her now isn't the time for a science lesson. It takes another precious 3 minutes for him to bring her what she needs, and soon they've got a makeshift lightning rod to move and travel carefully around his building, checking its alleys and side streets. Ugh, web is full of spiders, Taro yells in their ear. That's horrible, MG responds. No one could have predicted this. We'll be back, Chie says. Fighting. Blue wants to yell for them to just get out and not waste the time, or risk getting wiped out. But they're out of options, and so he keeps quiet and hopes they're okay. Surge gives them a few token shocks, keeping them hunched over. The civilian is inside the electronic instrument shop. Surge is hilarious, Blue pants as he tugs the lightning rod to just outside the door, and he convinces her to leave with them, trying to hurry despite the circumstances. We're out, Blue says once they're out of range. And we found one. They hurry to clear the rest of the blocks, searching desperately, now, a mix of hope and dread on every face Blue sees. 2 more. Come on, Tarochi, you've got it. Fire Pokemon, Rock Pokemon. You can do this. Whew, we're through, and we did indeed find someone in a closet. Coming out now. Blue grins, but it's short-lived as the minutes keep twitching inexorably down. 8. 8 out of 9 in 25 minutes. 5 minutes to find one. Just one. The thoughts keep racing through Blue's head as he tries to think of what they might be missing. Are they really expected to go into a building full of Voltorb if they don't know there's a civilian in there? They obviously wouldn't make them explode, but... Blue is clearing the last block before he spots Nelly on the other side open a dumpster lid, peer inside, then close it. And he suddenly freezes in place, eyes wide. One hand rises to his earpiece, and he says, in a voice that surprises him with how calm he sounds, "Did anyone think to check the dumpsters and trash bins?" There's silence for a moment, and then, "No? Checked if I could hide in one during the chase, but couldn't fight. Ooh, why would we? Sheet! Oh, damn it, seriously?" "Seriously," Blue says and starts running. "Full resweep of the streets now and check every closed container you find. Careful of Pokemon lurking in some. Just run if you find any." The task quickly proves to be disgusting, and some of the others do indeed find a couple Grimer and a Trubbish waiting for them under the lids. But with 2 minutes left, Blue runs for the area where he fought the Rotom. He starts looking through them in such a rush that he almost closes his third dumpster before realizing that what he's seeing isn't just a pile of clothes. It helps that it's screaming. "Ah!" The man inside cowers, curled up, then looks up with a smile. "Oh, you're not a poke." Blue drops the lid as his other hand covers his face, sighing. "I found him. Everyone get back to the bank, now." He opens the lid again and grabs the nonplussed gym member's hand, pulling him out of the bin and onto the street. "Are you okay? No injuries or anything?" Well, now that you mention it." Blue takes out a pair of potion bottles and sprays all over his clothes. "Now? Anything else?" The young man cowers back slightly from the look in Blue's eyes and swallows, glancing between the 2 potion bottles. I think I'm good." "Good. Then run, because the next wave is about to hit." Blue knows he gave himself almost a minute of grace when he set his alarm, but his heart is still pounding in his throat as they race for the bank, only to face a small horde of Pokemon waiting on Main Street. Surge and Sabra and Agarim and Otto and 2 others that Blue doesn't recognize are standing beside their Pokemon, and without pausing, Blue grabs the civilian's arm and pulls him down an alley, opening his mic again. "We're coming in from behind. Surge, and the others are out here. I'm going to collapse the front," Kron says. "Everyone else get to one of the fire exits and guard it." There are 17 seconds left when Blue spots everyone fanned out in a half circle around the bank's side entrance, their Pokemon out and waiting. Blue can hear the horde coming now. The gym leadership's Pokemon roaring and howling as they march on the bank, and Blue finds himself grinning wide, suddenly sure that this has been fun for them. He sees similar, celebratory grins on everyone's faces as, Stitch in his side and hand still clamped firm around the last civilian, Blue rushes past them and into the bank. The others quickly pile in and close the doors, then start to whoop and cheer before Blue raises his hand. "Not yet," Blue pants as his alarm goes off. "Everyone in the same room with the civilians, let's go." There's a banging sound from the front, and Kron is just arriving as they do, looking worried, but with laughter in his eyes. Man, this bank is probably not going to be happy with what the leader's doing to their furniture. In, Chie says to the civilians, pushing them all inside. Then without a word, the trainers all fan out again, summoning Pokemon to stand beside them. And then they wait, listening to the sound of moving, breaking furniture. And then silence, followed by footsteps, followed by Leader Surge, standing with his hands clasped behind his back and a smile on his face at the sight before him. "Congratulations," is all he says, and then everyone cheers. Mrs. Khatri and Mr. Iha look quietly furious. Blue sits in Leader Surge's office. There was a brief ceremony in the street, in front of the drone cameras. His third badge sits next to the other 2, and he keeps glancing at it, enjoying the way the light gleams off its yellow surface. He quickly returns his attention to the conversation going on around him each time. The conversation that started within an hour of the match finishing. Serge escorting him away from his teammates and other friends so he could speak with him privately. Instead of a heart-to-heart with his leader, however, Blue had to hold in all his questions once he saw the two league officials back again. Somehow, caught up in everything as he was, he didn't even consider that, as he was focusing on his objectives, on the realism the scenario was intended for. That realism was extending to attacks from the Pokémon that were actually hitting him and his teammates. Hearing the two yell about it did reframe those moments with a bit more seriousness somehow. "Well?" Serge asks Blue, brow raised. "Would you care to make a formal renegade accusation?" Of course he'll say no, Mr. Iha says, just as Blue opens his mouth to. "Don't be overdramatic, leader," Mrs. Khatri sighs. "That's not our goal here, and you know it. This isn't what we talked about when we condoned these scenarios. All I know is that you are asserting that my gym members were at risk during their challenge match," Serge says, hands laced over his desk and tone cold. "Let's let the trainer speak this time, shall we? Blue, what are your thoughts?" Blue waits half a minute, forming his words, then simply says, "It was great." He keeps his expression calm as he turns to the two league representatives, as if all this is completely unimportant and obvious. "I knew how far I was from the opponent Pokémon at all times, and I trusted the gym members and leader to not do anything that would endanger me. We've all trained and learned well, whether it was studying safest trainer distances from enemies, or the distance over the ground that electricity can travel. I'm willing to believe you both," Mrs. Khatri says. "But consider the optics. The whole region, maybe the whole world, saw trainers being knocked off their feet by Blastoise water cannons and being nearly frozen solid. I understand," she repeats, gaze on his. "But imagine how it will play to others, how some will react against it and others will adopt a new, laxer standard. When do you suspect the first death will take place?" Blue grits his teeth, waiting for Serge to answer, then realizes it was asked of him. "Trainers occasionally get hurt during battles, real or not." He shrugs. "We may be limiting ourselves." "Trainers get hurt, by accident," Mr. Iha says. "Some attacks have wide range. Sometimes Pokémon miss, or trainers don't pay attention to where they're positioned. But Pokémon should never attack if a human is too likely to be caught in the radius." Serge snorts. "That was a foolish regulation when you tried to pass it, and I won't pretend it has moral weight on its own. A Pokémon that can't follow an explicit order, even if it risks harm to a human, is a Pokémon that can't handle a wide range of real situations where it's unavoidable. Sometimes the human is already dead. Or they're being eaten alive, right in front of you, and the only way to save them risks hurting them too." Serge's face is like stone as he stares down the angry league official until he looks away. Once he does, Serge turns to Mrs. Khatri, who seems less inclined to get into a staring match. "You've made your point," she says, her own anger more under control. "And as I said, it doesn't matter. The Pokémon will still need to be turned over for examination, and the incident investigated and discussed before any further scenarios are constructed." "What?" Everyone ignores Blue's outrage as Serge unclips 3 balls from his belt and hands them over, which distracts him anyway. He almost expresses his surprise that Serge was the Rotom's trainer, then clamps his mouth shut. The leader was clearly prepared for this meeting, and Blue isn't going to risk throwing a wrench in things without thinking. They have the drone footage anyway, which would either clear the leader or wouldn't. "The scenarios will continue," Serge asserts, not leaving room for them to argue. "But we will restrain ourselves to simple, static battles until your investigation officially recognizes that we're not being negligent with our trainers." Blue wants to yell that that's pointless, that Glenn and Elaine and the others wouldn't get a real challenge that way, wouldn't get to really experience what they did, what they all worked for. But again, he grinds his teeth together and waits until the 2 representatives leave. As soon as they do, some of his anger burns itself out, the Arcanine prowling in his chest without a clear source to unleash his anger on. This was supposed to be a day of triumph, but somehow all he can think of is that they may have lost something precious before it even really got a chance to begin and grow. "Well?" Serge says after a moment as he pulls a small flask from his desk, unscrews, and drinks from it. Now that's out of the way. What did you think? Blue looks at his leader to see he's smiling. After a moment, Blue smiles back. It was great, amazing. I have a lot of questions. Serge nods. I have some time to spare. The Rotom, I never saw their trainer until the end maybe. Psychic? Yes. 2 of the staff members were not from our gym. A loan of sorts, especially requested. It made for a useful added range of challenge. Blue nods. How realistic did you actually want it to be? I feel like we cheated at times, but Serge shakes his head. You can't cheat if you follow the rules, and if anyone's at fault for the rules as written, it's me. As for how realistic, I think you've guessed. As much as possible, given constraints. Given constraints. Serge and his people selected that too, for the most part. But there was an unforced expectation that the Pokémon would follow wild guidelines despite being explicitly trainer-guided. Blue almost mentions how that can change the lens of the exercise, but his new revelation is more well-rounded now. You're not just using these scenarios to train us for tier incidents, he says, voice quiet. Serge raises a brow at him, then takes another drink before capping it and putting it in his desk. What makes you say that? You wouldn't have let Pokémon use moves they could only learn from TMs if you were, even if it would provide us the best challenge. The leader watches him expectantly a moment, and Blue presses on. You're preparing us for renegades. Sabotage. Why? Is it just in case, or is something happening? But even as he asks, Blue realizes he's got it wrong. The leader's face shows genuine confusion for a moment, and then he smiles again, the sheepish tones to it looking strange on the leader's face. I forgot. You faced exactly that situation on Mount Moon. Of course, that's what you would think of first. His smile fades. I'm sorry if it brought back any memories. In the moment, that wasn't my intention. Too many other things to consider. Something was bound to slip through the cracks. Blue waves a hand to the side. No, it's fine. But then, I don't understand. What were you going for? The leader shrugs. You've got at least one more match to figure it out. Let me know if you do. Maybe you'll decide to stay after all. He smiles. I would be happy to have you if so. Blue grins at the compliment, brief but sincere. I can't promise I'll stay, but I can say I'll be back. One day as champion.
This has been an AI reading of the Pokémon fanfic, Pokémon, The Origin of Species, written by Daystar Eld. If you enjoy this work, please visit patreon.com/daystareld, where you can support the author. Additionally, if you enjoyed this podcast and wish to help support the creation of others like it, you can visit patreon.com/askwhocastsai, where we are releasing episodes 4 weeks in advance of the regular feed. Thanks for listening.